folks, this is Earl again. Going to give you a short lecture this morning on history. Lately there's been a lot of talk about the Founding Fathers. What were they like? What did they do? What didn't they do? How did they feel about this so-called separation of church and state? That's what we're going to talk about today. First of all, Founding Fathers, called the Founding Fathers, of course, because they found our country. It was just lying here waiting to be found. They came on a boat or a ship, whichever one it is, and they saw it, and they said, look, America, let's go live there and have a land of opportunity with the best beer in the world, with NASCAR, and with all the other things that makes our country great, like the Tea Party. And, of course, there were some people living here at the time, natives, locals, but they had no civilization. They had no money. They had no Jordache jeans. They had no Stetson hats. And, of course, they did not have the hallmarks of high culture like a beer and NASCAR and things like that. They didn't even have cars. I don't know what they were doing. But, so, because they had no money, we had to barter with them. We had to say, how do you do this? And they said, we trade. So we said, okay, here's some jujubes. You give us, for example, Manhattan. Here are some blankets with smallpox. You give us the rest of the frickin' country. And we're nice, you know, so we do things for them to thank them for this little trade that we did. We name a football team after them. We once a year have Thanksgiving, where we thank them for being dumb enough to save our butts that first winter. And we respect their culture by having our kids dress up like them in a very stereotypical way for the elementary school play, Thanksgiving play. Sometimes even at Halloween, we encourage our kids to run around like crazy Indians and howl. And that's our way of showing that we respect your culture, okay? We don't invite you over to our house for dinner on Thanksgiving because that would be weird. You know, I don't even know if Indians know what a house is because they're living in teepees, you know, and they're living on a reservation. You have to make a reservation before you even want to go visit some of them over there. Now, some people say that our first president, George Jefferson, did not want church and state to be the same. Oh, sorry, George Washington. I always get George Washington and Thomas Jefferson rolled up into George Jefferson, that moving on up guy, but you know what I'm talking about. George Washington and Jefferson and Madison and Hamilton and all these guys that found our place, found America, didn't want church and state to be the same. And I call bullshit on that. All right? I have no idea why you're saying that. Okay, sure, there are quotes, that things that came out of their mouths that say that they wanted that. Sure, you could talk that way. Or you could talk about letters that they wrote to each other, or the fact that they were Enlightenment thinkers and all that kind of hullabaloo. Or you can look at the logic of separating church from state and realize it's all a big smokescreen created by the liberals to distract you from what's really happening. My church, for example, is right down the street, all right, and it is in the state of Arizona. How are you going to separate my church from my state? Huh? What is this, the Wizard of Oz? You're going to pick it up in a tornado and drop it off in New Mexico? I call bullshit on that stuff. No separation of church and state, even if George Jefferson wanted it that way. Even if he's living up in the top apartment and he's talking down to the rest of us and telling us, kind of like Obama, that black man that moved up into the top. He moved on up too. And don't tell me separate my church from my state. I'm not driving to New Mexico to go to church. I will, Lord. Believe me, I will if that's what it'll take. But it's crazy talk. All right. Just to sum it all up, Founding Fathers found our country. We took care of the Indians. We tried to do the best we could with the bartering system that we had. And you cannot separate a church from a state, crazy people. Come on. Come on. And finally, America.